When starting with a new preset in Pianoteq, there are several things I like to alter about the settings in the preset if I'm going to be using the preset for mixing. Anytime I'm doing mixing, composition, or other activities, the playback settings aren't very useful for what I'm doing. So I tend to, and some of these you can do in stage, some of them you can do in standard, and all of them, of course, you can do in pro. Any of these will help make it easier to mix Pianoteq with other either sampled instruments or anything else you're doing as part of a workflow. Again, for general playback, you don't need to do any of these things, but it does help if you're going to be running it in a DAW or doing anything alongside it. Step one is to turn the limiter off. The limiter will add distortion. It's there as a protection during playback, but it doesn't really help anywhere near as much as coming and lowering the volume slider. I usually, if it's going to be, I've done as low as something like -24 if it's going to be mixed with full orchestra, or in cases where you need that much headroom. As a general rule, a piano in either a solo context or even a most ensemble context isn't going to need that much headroom, so I usually do something between -15 and -9, depending upon how naturally loud or quiet the instrument and the mic setup is. Dynamics can usually be left well alone. Velocity, I will, in this case, I'm going to paste in my velocity curve for my keyboard. Go ahead and follow the calibration utility and come up either on the forums with something someone else has worked with or with your own calibration for what's best for your controller. This curve has worked very well for me for a couple of years with the keyboard I use, and so I always try to use it on any new preset. So it's just a matter of copying it from one preset and pasting it into another, which you can either do with shortcut keys or by clicking on it like I did. Those things are going to be the fastest helps to getting it to sound better. I also, particularly if it's for mixing, go ahead and turn off anything but the reverb. You can also go ahead and turn off the reverb completely, and that can that will work as well if you're wanting to add your own reverb later. Since I'm usually doing composition activities and don't mind having reverb earlier in the workflow, I go ahead and put one in. I also like to select an impulse response file, which there are plenty available freely online or through other sources, and they work very well in Pianoteq. You can also work with the onboard reverb, which works quite well, but I do prefer the quad files that I use also for other projects with other VSTs. Also, if I'm working with the Prelude preset right now, which is quite straightforward to begin with, I usually start also by turning off the equalizer on some of the, on anything that has an unusual EQ built in, because if I want EQ, I'll add it later in the workflow. And so we'll reset the pedal there. For a matter of taste, I will go ahead and usually change the condition slider, and more importantly, change the random seed. That does a whole lot more. It doesn't matter really what you set it to, but try a few settings, try a few different numbers, and it really does have a nice, at least in the current version of Pianoteq, a really nice impact on how things sound. And here we'll just test a sequenced file, and hopefully, yeah, okay. Good volume, good settings, nice sound that then you can work with later. If you're in standard or pro, you can come back in and start tweaking all of the more advanced settings, but that's the easiest way to get Pianoteq up and running for a mixing workflow.